Okay, I'm going to get started, everyone. Welcome. I'm Alicia Meehan. I'm the Assistant Dean for Admissions and Recruitment here at St. John's Law, and we're very excited you could join us today for our housing webinar. We actually had planned this event before we had turned to online learning anyway, so it worked out well because we wanted to showcase our university housing options to you, and a webinar seemed like a great way to reach people remotely. So I'm going to get started now. I know a few people might be joining us as we talk. I just want to make you aware, in case you don't regularly use WebEx, there is on your right-hand toolbar a chat feature. It's on the bottom right-hand toolbar, and if you click on the arrow next to it, it'll expand the chat feature. We'll have a question and answer period at the end, and you can use both the chat feature or you can use the hand symbol, which is also in the toolbar next to the green check mark or the red X to raise your hand. And at the end, we'll take questions if you raise your hand, and we'll unmute you at that time, but we'll leave you muted during the presentation. I think at this point, we'll get started. And great. So again, I'm Alicia Meehan, and welcome to St. John's Law. I have with me today Jason Bartlett from our Office of Residence Life, who will talk in just a few minutes about the housing process and the self-selection process we have here at St. John's University. And I have Raul Munez. Raul is a first-year student who lives in DePaul townhouses, and took us behind-the-scenes video of his apartment to share with you. After we watch the video, I'll turn it over to Jason to tell you a little bit more about the housing process, and then we'll open it up to question and answers. So you can think about your questions while we're going here, and we'll turn to either our chat box or raised hands during the question and answer period at the end. Okay, I think at this point, we'll turn it over to Raul and see his apartment. Raul?
My name is Raul. I'm a first-year law student at St. John's. And today I'm going to give you a quick tour of my apartment at DePaul. Coming from South Florida, I was really looking for a housing situation that was furnished, had all the amenities that I needed, and was close enough to campus where I didn't have to worry about transportation. So with that being said, let me give you a quick tour of my apartment. My favorite part of living at DePaul, living on the 3rd floor. Here we are. So right about that way, about a 5-minute walk, there's a supermarket and a Dunkin' Donuts. Here we have a dry cleaner, so if you need to dry clean any wardrobe, you can do that. About a mile that way is St. John's. And in terms of transportation, there is a shuttle that comes every hour, 7 days a week, right there. And now I'm gonna show you where you can catch a shuttle every morning, the pick up and drop off spot. Here's our stop, and here's our shuttle. Good morning. It's about a 5-minute shuttle ride, and here we are. So you can hop on, hop off whenever you want, so you can get back and forth to campus. So right here we have our living area, we have a couch, and a kitchen. Kitchen is great because you can cook anything you need with the stove and the oven. I actually have an air fryer right there, so I can save a lot of money by cooking and not eating out. Right here we have the washer and dryer, which is a huge plus. Being in the New York City area, not everybody has that, so being able to wash and dry your clothes is definitely a plus. Right here we have the bathroom. I actually have 2 roommates that are also law students, and one of the great things about DePaul is that most students that live in here are law students, so they're respectful of your time and of your privacy, so there's no issues with that. Last but not least is my room. Here's my desk where I spend a lot of time studying, my bed, and then my closet. So I actually got pretty lucky where I got my own bathroom and my own closet. So that is pretty nice. I lucked out with that. And again, it is 3 of us. It is myself and 2 other roommates. So there you have it. There's a quick tour of my apartment at DePaul. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the fall.
Thanks, Raul. We'll open up for questions and answers at the end with Raul so that you can find out a little bit more about what his experience has been. Right now, I'd like to turn it over to Jason Bartlett in our Office of Residence Life to learn more about the housing process here at St. John's. Jason?
Thanks very much, Alicia. Hi, guys. Welcome to St. John's Law and to the DePaul Houses. I am actually talking to you today live from the DePaul Houses where I also live. So this is a unique community, as Raul said, about a mile from the university. Just down the street, really only 3 lights. And as somebody who completed doctoral study not too long ago, I know how important it is to have a place where you can crash and recharge and do your work so that you can focus on the most serious study that you have to do as you earn a life credential. And I think for my money, DePaul would be the place that I'd want to stay. It's one of the nicest options that we offer here at the university. And today what I'd like to do is try to talk to you a little bit about the process that's required on your end in order to enroll, to complete an application, and then ultimately select your room online. And then I'll talk to you a little bit about what it's actually like living here. I've called DePaul home for the last 3 years, and it's the most comfortable places I've lived and worked over the years. So we'll advance to the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the nuts and bolts. I think one of the most important things that you guys should consider as you're preparing to begin your legal career is that here at St. John's, as a 1L, you receive priority over your classmates who are in their 2nd and 3rd years. What that means is the sooner you make your deposit, the sooner you will select in the process. So time is of the essence. We have until April the 15th for everybody to make their deposits. 1L will receive priority in this process through April 1st. So don't get caught on April Fool's Day. Make sure that you put your deposit down soon if you're certain that you're coming to DePaul. What that means is we will rank you by the date of your deposit, and you will receive an appointment to select online in the order in which you deposited. So again, that priority is available to you as a 1L. It's the university's way of making sure that as you are beginning this new chapter of your life, that at the very least, the housing question is solved for you. You are eligible to renew your opportunity to live in housing every year around this time and to come back for a 2nd and 3rd year here in DePaul. But again, you have the privilege of choosing first. So making that deposit sooner rather than later is very important. Go to the next slide. So to talk a little bit about the process, let me tell you how it unfolds. So you'll be making a seat deposit, which guarantees your academic commitment to the university. But in order to begin the housing process, you have to make a separate $500 housing deposit. That housing deposit is the thing that will jumpstart your access to the housing application. So once your deposit is recorded, typically within 24 business hours, the university will process that deposit, and my office will send out an online application. You'll have a unique student number, and you'll have a unique password that allows you to log in and to complete the application. Within the application, we're looking for some very basic information: contact information, emergency information, health insurance information. Is there a medical need that you have that might need some consideration? There's an opportunity for you to look at who the other 1Ls are who may be applying for housing as well, and to consider who might make a good apartment mate. There's a questionnaire that asks you to tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of study habits so that you can find a good compatibility with another roommate. And then you sign your 10-month contract at the end. The process all told takes about 30 seconds to complete, and you'll get an email once you've successfully navigated the fall 2020 grad law application. And one of the things that I would point out in there is that if you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to me, and I'll be happy to answer any of those questions that you have. But having your application completed and signed by April 15th is the next piece that allows you to move on in the process. So as I said before, what we'll do is once we take a look at all the people with completed applications, we'll put you in order for selection based on the date in which you deposited. And so you will receive an email from our office on April the 16th. And in that, it will tell you that your appointment has been scheduled for a certain day and a certain time. We've designated this year April 22nd as the Law Student Selection Day. So on that day that you'll have your appointment, you'll return to the very same application that you completed earlier, and there will be new pages available that allow you to navigate to the DePaul houses and to pick a building, to pick a floor, to pick an apartment, and then ultimately to pick your very bed space. All of that takes about 5 minutes as well, and it's all done online, so there's no need to be anywhere. Any mobile connected device can handle it. You can do it from a tablet, from a phone, or from a computer. Again, our office will be standing by to answer questions should you have any technical difficulties. So that's the process in a nutshell. One of the things that I would point out is that if you go to the St. John's University webpage, you click on the search button and type in the words housing selection, you'll come to a page that details a whole lot more of what I've been talking about and provides an important list of deadlines and dates that you as a law student should be considering if you're thinking about housing here at St. John's. And so the housing selection website is really our clearinghouse for a lot of this information, but if you needed to speak with a person, I'd be more than happy to make myself available to answer some of those particular questions. So let's talk a little bit about DePaul. It's a very comfortable place to live. As Raul mentioned before, just about everything you could need in the area is right here. I'm looking out my window right now, and I can tell you that there are 2 Chinese food restaurants, 2 pizza places, a supermarket, a dry cleaner, a financial consultant. What else do we have? Pharmacies, dry cleaners, a bank, and the Family Dollar is directly across the street. So if you needed a last-minute snack or you ran out of laundry detergent, it's literally across the street. In addition to that, there is access to the Q46 bus, which can take you up to Jamaica Station. If you were feeling adventurous and wanted to walk a half mile down Main Street, gets you to the E&F, and for a $6 Uber ride, you can be over at the Long Island Railroad. Just about everything you need is within a hop, skip, and a jump. My wife and I call DePaul home. There's about 100 students who live here, and as Raul mentioned before, law students live with law students. So 70% of the community here is law students who typically live 3 people to an apartment. There are a couple of apartments on the ground floor that are a little smaller. There are some 1-person apartments, but those tend to go very quickly and are limited in number. And then there are a handful of 2-person apartments on the ground floor. But for the most part, every apartment here is 3 people to an apartment. There aren't elevators at DePaul, so make sure you get your steps in. My wife, who's expecting our first right now, never ceases to remind me when we go to the grocery store that when I chose the 3rd floor, I made a deal that I would always bring the groceries up. So it's 27 steps from the ground floor to the 3rd floor, and honestly, my quads have never been stronger. What else can I tell you about the apartment? If you're coming from far away and don't want to bring a ton of furniture, or if you're transitioning from an undergrad experience and don't have a ton of furniture, the apartments are fully furnished. There is a kitchen table and a set of 4 chairs. There is a full kitchen with a full-size refrigerator, a dishwasher, and a gas oven and range. It has a range hood and a full sink. There's a full complement of cupboards. The only thing there isn't is a microwave. You should talk with your roommate so that you don't have 3 microwaves show up on that day. Typically, there's 3 bedrooms, and they range in size. So the bedroom in the front, where I'm currently sitting, is typically the smallest. It shares a common area bathroom with another bedroom located in the back. So there's 1 in the front, 2 in the back. And of the 2 in the back, they tend to be the larger ones. One of them shares a common area bathroom. One has its own internal bathroom. Again, each bedroom is fully furnished. So you'll have a dresser. You'll have a desk with a hutch to put books on. You'll have a twin-size bed, and you'll have a rocking chair, like a 3-position chair that you would typically see in an undergrad experience. The living room has a couch and a love seat and end tables and a coffee table. There's also on the 2nd and 3rd floors balconies. What else can I tell you? Hardwood floors throughout that were just recently redone within the last calendar year. Easy access to all of the mass transit. There's a supermarket up the street that for New York City is very affordable and an easy walk. There's high-speed internet that was just upgraded within the last year, and the other upside is that you're on the university network, which means if you need to access the library or Blackboard or something that your professor has posted, you're on the very same Wi-Fi here that you would be on the main campus. A shuttle arrives every hour and brings you to where you need to be, and every apartment is furnished with a stacked laundry service. There's a washer on the bottom and a dryer on the top. Like I said, I've worked in higher ed for a number of years. I've stayed in a number of different residence halls over my career. This is one of the nicest. One last piece to note is that while there are 100 people who live here, 70% of them are law students. So the vast majority of folks that you know are just as seriously committed to their study as you are. Our grad students make up about 30% of this population, and they live in their own section. Parking is limited. This is New York City, so there's typically only about 40 parking spaces. The reality is that we host a lottery over the summer to determine who is selected for a parking space here at DePaul. If you're not fortunate to get the parking space at DePaul, there is a second lottery for parking on the main campus. In that scenario, you'd be able to park in a designated resident lot and then could use the shuttle to go to and from your classes. The upside to that is that your car is on campus and monitored and safe. If you want, you can certainly always take advantage of street parking, but again, this is a densely populated residential section of Queens, and typically around 3:30, 4 o'clock, a lot of the prime street parking begins to fill up, and you have to make yourself aware of alternate side of the street parking and all of those wonderful rules of life here in New York City, which can be particularly challenging when it snows. I guess the only other point that I would add is that it is a really nice place to live. Just behind DePaul, there's a wonderful condominium community, a nice place to take walks. There's plenty of green space. There are parks nearby. And in about 20 minutes, you can be in Lower Manhattan if you'd like to. It's a place that I call home. It's a place that I'm going to be bringing my first child into the world. And so I think for the law student who's getting ready and getting serious about buckling in to study, this place answers a lot of the questions that you might have. I'm sure that there's more that you're curious about, and I'd be happy to talk you through some of that. You've got all my information here. I'm a fiend on email, so just please feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help answer any questions you have and make this place your home.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jason. So I hope that gave you a good sense of the process, but also gave you the behind the scenes footage of what living in DePaul is really like with Raul. So at this point, Jason and Raul are both available for questions. You can either use the chat feature, which is on the bottom right-hand toolbar, and you use the arrow next to it to expand it, and you can type in your question, or you can click on the hand symbol, which is also in the right-hand toolbar, next to the green check mark and the red X. And if you raise your hand and click on that, then we will unmute you and you can ask your question live. So right now I want to make sure that we can answer as many questions as we can. So take a moment and think out what you want to hear more about. So Jason and Raul, if you can unmute yourselves, it looks like we have some questions coming in, and I'll leave them to you.
Hello, everyone.
So I saw a question that was posted about room and board costs, and so I've just sent out a link here. We don't have the costs for the fall posted yet on the university's main page. You can take a look at the different breakdowns of the bedroom costs here at St. John's so that you can factor that into your budget. The meal plan, as Raul mentioned before, is totally optional. So if you're looking to save some bucks, I think cooking in the residence hall is a fantastic way to go. If you're not ready for the full-time commitment, we have a number of meal plans in the student dining hall that could help take the edge off full-time adulting and cooking 3 squares a day.
And I would add on to that most students decide to cook at the townhouses just because it's easier. Most students pack lunches and then eat dinner at home. So the cooking thing is definitely doable.
The costs that you see there are for 10 months. That includes everything. That's electric, gas, full repairs. The university's facility staff has an online app. If something breaks, you put in a work order. They come in, they get it, and you're good to go.
So I see a question about furniture. Jason, can you touch on that?
So again, this is university furniture. It is typically the butcher block kind of setup where you have a fireproof mattress, you have a wooden desk, chair, and bed frame. You have university furnitures for the dressers. If you were to look at the university's residence life page, there's another video tour as well as pictures inside the residence hall here at DePaul that you can get a look for those. And what else can I say about the furniture? The couches are like a faux leather. So there's typically a 2-seater and a 1-seater in each apartment.
Good, and I saw a question about roommates. So if you're not planning on living in DePaul, but you want to be put in touch with other folks in the intern class, we have a couple different options. After you submit your deposit, we do start a Facebook group just for deposited students coming in to St. John's so that you can connect with other folks. We also have a roommate referral board that we have a link to on our website. It's not up yet, but where you can fill it out and say that you're looking for a roommate. That's really for off-campus housing, meaning not university-owned housing. If you want to find someone online, connect with them, and go into an apartment elsewhere together. If you want to do a roommate through Jason, I'll let him touch on that process.
So yeah, if you remember, we were talking a little bit about the housing application. Within the housing application, there's a questionnaire that asks a variety of questions about your study habits and personal lifestyle. What that does is it creates a compatibility score, sort of like a low-budget eHarmony. And you can search for other roommates. They are able to post their name and a brief description of who they are and what they're looking for. And you can communicate back and forth through the application to determine, based on the score and your conversation, if you guys would like to be roommates. And then when it comes time to select, you're able to kind of connect and say, okay, I'm going in at this time, you're going in at this time, let's try to live together in this apartment. And that's just another way to find folks who are interested in becoming your roommate here.
I see one question about room availability. Jason, do you want to just touch on space is still available? I believe no one has selected rooms yet, correct?
That's right. No one has selected as of yet. Those private rooms that I mentioned in the beginning, I'm sure got everyone's ear. Again, they are extremely limited. There's only 3 of them. They're typically reserved for students with significant ADA issues. Those that are available are oftentimes the first ones to go. So what I would suggest is prepare for a situation in which you're likely living with 2 other people, but all have your own private bedroom. There's also a feature within the selection process when you're getting ready to choose a room where you can click on a magnifying glass and it will explode that room a little bit for you so that you can learn a little bit more about it. It will tell you the square footage, which is obviously an important consideration for most people.
So I see a question about the deposit deadline. So we are not planning on extending any deadlines here because for us, we are still planning on having our entering students start on August 17th, and they generally move into DePaul townhouses several days before then. For seat deposits, we need to know by April 15th whether you're coming or not, because if not, I do have a very robust wait list of folks who would like to join us that I want to get back to them about if there's space available. Regarding housing, the deposit is refundable up until a certain date. So your seat deposit to hold your seat is non-refundable. Your housing deposit is refundable up until May 15th, and the law school does it as a courtesy to law students so that if you are moving from out of town and you're a little bit unfamiliar with the area, it gives you some time to figure things out before you're making that firm commitment. But after May 15th, it is non-refundable. So you should be planning this out now. And in New York City, it's not unusual to be trying to find housing 2 to 3 months before you're moving here. I saw a question, Jason, if you can take it about utilities and also how does the cost compare?
Yeah, so everything is included in that price. Your wireless, your cable, your gas, your electric, everything is included in that price. The only thing that wouldn't be included would be the parking charge, which is a separate fee through the Department of Public Safety. But yeah, for 10 months, everything is rolled up into that cost that you see on the Room and Board webpage. We do have the option for students who decide to stay in the New York area for the summer, whether you're pursuing additional coursework or perhaps an internship to apply for summer housing. There's a separate cost for that. So the costs you see are for 10 months, and there would be an additional charge for summer housing. But yes, everything is included.
And then Jason, I see a question about the portal and when they can apply for housing, and then also about RAs, and do we have RA opportunities?
Sure. So the first question was about the application. Typically 24 business hours after you make a deposit, our office will process it and send you the application. You can reach out to me if there's any delay. Typically the only delay happens if you make your deposit on Friday when we're closed. It will wait until Monday and whatever Monday presents before we can process it. But typically 24 hours is a good rule of thumb. We don't have RAs here. We have a graduate assistant. And the university's rules for graduate assistants do not apply, or sorry, make it difficult for law students to become a member of the residence life staff. So unfortunately, law students, because of your program of study, are prohibited from receiving a graduate assistantship. We do have a graduate assistant from the graduate school who lives and supports life here at DePaul.
Okay, and I see a question about just capacity and what percentage of students live there and such. So the law school has 69 beds available at DePaul Townhouses. I expect we will have an incoming class of around 230 or 240 students. So it's certainly not everyone who lives there. Last year, I think we had about 58 first-year students live at DePaul and 69 law students total. So it's primarily first-year students, but after April 1, as Jason mentioned, we do open it up to upper-class students who want to live there, but we give the priority to incoming first years who pay their seat deposit by April 1.
Question about where do 2L live after their time here. It's a variety of people who make different decisions. We do have a number of 2 and 3Ls who live with us now. There are some who decide to look out into the local area after they've gotten their feet wet. So it really just depends on the individual. I think those who move out are typically those who are from the surrounding area and know the lay of the land. I think the people who stay here with us in DePaul are typically from out of state.
Raul, do you mind touching on what you're doing and what your friends are thinking about?
Sure. So because I had such a great roommate experience, we decided to get an apartment off campus, but still close to campus for our 2L year. So I think living at DePaul was helpful because, again, I was able, like Jason said, I was able to get my feet wet, kind of get familiar with the area, and then meet some, really great students I know that I could actually live with, and then decide to move off campus.
There was a question about security at DePaul. So unlike our traditional undergrad residence halls, we do not have a 24-hour security front desk that you have to pass through. Each apartment is on its own, so the only people who can get into it are the folks who have a key to that front door, and then there's a separate key to your apartment. So at any given time, there's always 2 locks between you and the outside world. The individual bedrooms do not have locks on them, so we do encourage students to bring a safe or something like that to keep their personal valuables locked up. The university's guest policies still apply. You can read about those in the student handbook. But DePaul is the one location at the university where the alcohol policy does not apply. So the university is a dry campus for our undergrad housing options, but here at DePaul, that rule does not apply.
So it looks like we've had some good questions, and I appreciate all your participation. Jason shared his contact information with you all, so you're welcome to follow up with him directly with any individual questions you have. But we thank you for your time today, and we hope this gave you a little bit of a glimpse of what DePaul Townhouses has to offer.